See, I wish I could shove these cookies straight through the screen into your face, but I can't. So come bake with me. We're gonna get started baking the best chocolate chip cookies ever. I'm actually making 2 batches today. I'm doing chocolate chip and I'm doing white chocolate macadamia nut. So I'm really excited. I'm actually baking them because I'm gonna be seeing my coworkers tonight. Oven is preheating to 410 degrees. Recipe and everything is gonna be linked in the description box for you. That way you can follow along and bake with me. We also have to get the mixer off the top of the fridge, which I usually have my husband do, but I have to. It's the hardest part, the whole recipe. We're gonna lock and load. All right, first things first is the butter. You want it to be chilled. I literally just pulled this out of my fridge. We're doing 1 cup of butter. Every time I make these cookies, I think back to when I was in college. I was giving the recipe to my friend Mackenzie. I'm pretty sure we were just sitting in class and I was like rattling off the ingredients. I told her 2 cups of butter when I meant to say 2 sticks of butter. Needless to say, her cookies came out horrible. So don't make that mistake. I'm just chopping these into kind of thick cubes. That's satisfying. Very cold, very chilled, exactly the way we want it. Maybe a little bit too cold. You can let it sit out for like 5 minutes. But that's one of the key components of this recipe, is having a chilled dough. Should we go Italian style? I am Italian, but. Next thing that we're doing is brown sugar, and I always use a mixture of light brown sugar and dark brown sugar. If you're not sure what the difference is, even between like your classic granulated sugar and brown sugar, it's molasses. Light brown sugar has a little molasses and dark brown sugar has more molasses, and they do different things in recipes. I prefer to use a mixture. So in this recipe, we have a cup of brown sugar. I'll use half a cup of light brown sugar, half a cup of dark brown sugar. In general, you can absolutely make cookies with all white sugar, but if you make cookies with all white sugar, they're definitely not gonna have as much chew that the molasses gives it. So we are actually going to be using a combination. Half a cup white sugar, and then equal parts light brown sugar and dark brown sugar. Now, if you are interested in knowing like what the actual difference is in cookies when it comes to light brown sugar or dark brown sugar, in the end, it really depends on what you are looking for. So if you were to use all dark brown sugar in your cookies, you would have a very, very chewy cookie. We're gonna pack in the dark brown sugar. And if you were to only use light brown sugar, you would have a golden cookie that is slightly chewy still. So most people just use light brown sugar. We're gonna pop our butter into the bowl with a paddle mixer. You can make these cookies by hand. I don't recommend it. The dough is going to be so thick and hard to stir. It would quite literally be an arm workout. But who am I to tell you what to do with your life? Okay. All right, we are going to mix, not super aggressively, just enough. Okay, once it gets to this point, I am going to start adding in the eggs 1 at a time for a total of 2 eggs. Best practice, don't crack your eggs directly into the bowl. My practice, oh well. 1 egg in. I'm mixing it just to where the egg is incorporated. Egg number 2. Tessa always gets excited when I'm cracking eggs because she thinks that she automatically gets some. All right, easy peasy. Let it be known that before I even mess with the cold ingredients, I usually already have the dry ingredients done. but you're distracting me. That's okay though, because this is a really quick process. Okay, we're doing equal parts all-purpose flour and cake flour. Cake flour makes baked goods in general really, really fluffy. If you use all-purpose flour in your cookies, they would be a little bit more crumbly, but you still can. 1.5 cups of all-purpose and 1.5 cups of cake flour. You can and absolutely should use a baking scale. I am so lazy, so we're doing the spoon method. I've just never found immense joy in baking where super particular measuring is involved. It's just not my thing, and it drives John crazy, but that's me. I actually hate measuring in any capacity. The only time I'm ever like, okay, we can measure this is if it's like macarons, because ain't no way that's working out if you don't measure. Next up is a teaspoon of cornstarch. Cornstarch, whenever you're cooking with it, like usually you would mix it with water, you'd add it to a sauce. It does give you a thicker cookie, but that's only because it reduces the spread, if that makes sense. And it makes your cookie a little bit chewier, a little bit softer. So about a teaspoon. I'm always a little bit generous here, about a teaspoon of cornstarch. Then we're gonna do 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda, not baking powder. They are different. Baking soda is just base part of it, and baking powder already has like the acid in it too. We're using brown sugar already, so that brown sugar is going to act as the acid for the baking soda. Basically, it gives it spread and it gives it color. And I eyeball this every time. Don't be like me. We're also going to do 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. But I also think that the dark brown sugar, like the molasses in there, helps the cookies rise when it's with the baking soda. We're gonna stir this all together. We've got our normal flour, our cake flour that's lower in protein. We've got our baking soda that's gonna be mixed in with the brown sugar in here. We've got our salt, cornstarch, nice and chewy. Just the perfect combination. So this part really doesn't take long at all, but it is better to do beforehand because obviously we want a cold dough. And we're just gonna spoon it in a little at a time. Just until it's incorporated. My handy dandy spatula. Let's scrape this off here just so we can make sure that it is incorporating fully. It's so thick. It's exactly what we want. We like a cookie dough that's thick with 2 C's. Now is when you're going to add your mix-ins. Typically, I do about 2 cups. It's also better if you do the chopping of your ingredients beforehand. I don't know what is happening. If you have any ingredients that need to be chopped, do that. Again, do it beforehand. Do it when you're doing your flour, so your beautiful dough does not have to stay here. For the chocolate chip cookies, I always do a mixture of chocolate chips. I will do chunks and then mini chocolate chips if I have it. If not, I'll just do normal chocolate chips and mini chocolate chips. And if you only have normal chocolate chips, chop them up so that they vary in size. That is a key. All right, so I have an open bag of mini and an open bag of semi-sweet, but I do want to use chunks. So I'm gonna use 3 kinds because I'm excessive. But you know what? That's the fun of a chocolate chip cookie. We're gonna do about a cup of chunks. Gosh, I love a good chunk. Yep, cup-ish of chunks. Half a cup-ish of normal, and then the rest of that half cup-ish with the mini. You also want to save some of your chocolate chips for the tops of the cookies. So I measure like just under 2 cups when I'm actually putting it in. Plus you can always add more, but you can't take away. Which, who's gonna complain that there's too much chocolate in a cookie? Not me. Give this bad boy a gentle mix. Move all my chocolate chips. Truly a work of art. I mean, come on. This is like the best part of being home on summer break. I can do whatever I want. I can make cookies in the middle of the day on Friday. No one's gonna stop me. Oh, yes ma'am. It should be like this. It should be like, oh my gosh, Maylene, I cannot stir this. And we're just gonna make sure those chocolate chips are mixed in. We don't wanna overmix. I can see I'm on the verge of overmixing, so I'm gonna stop. Clean the work surface just a little. But I just can't do cookies when it's messy. Okay, handy dandy baking sheet. If you're doing this at home just by yourself, for yourself, use your fingers. I'm using spoons because I'm doing it for people. This is the important part. You want thick with 2 C's, balls, not even balls, blobs of dough. Like whatever you think is like, is this big enough? Make it bigger, okay? And then we're just gonna plop them on there. So we're gonna do about 9 cookies on this half sheet pan. Way faster if you use your fingers and just chunk it, but I think this is about half of the dough. I did mention I'm baking 2 batches of cookies. You cannot double this recipe, at least if you're making it in a mixer somewhat the same size as mine. I'm going to go ahead and pop these in the oven for about 10 minutes. Set your oven for 9 minutes, check on them. Oh, I almost forgot. Don't do that, hold on. Absolutely not, don't listen to me. Take some more of those chocolate chips and you're just gonna press them on top. Just gonna press them, and this way when they bake, they look good. Your cookies will still taste absolutely divine if you skip this step, but this is like what gives them that, wow, those cookies look so delicious factor. Like you need to put whatever topping you use, M&Ms, white chocolate chips, nuts, you gotta put it on top. You got to get people excited about the cookie before they take a bite. And you definitely don't want it to look perfect either. You want it to look like, oh, the cookies just naturally baked that beautifully. They did not. Now, this is the before. So beautiful. Okay, so like I was saying, we're gonna bake these for about 10 minutes. So what you can do is you can eat the cookie dough. You can pop this in the fridge while your cookies are baking. That way the dough doesn't get warmed. Or you can pre-scoop some, put them on a baking sheet and freeze them in ball form and then pop those in a Ziploc so you can make cookies whenever you want. And that is what I'm gonna do. I'm taking another baking pan and I'm pre-scooping the cookies so that whenever I want a chocolate chip cookie, I can preheat my oven and just pop this in, and it's like I just made them. They work really well from the freezer. I would just pull the cookies, preheat the oven. By the time the oven gets to temp, your cookies will be fine and ready to go. So I'm actually gonna be freezing the rest, and you can freeze the dough just putting it all in like one Ziploc bag, but it is so much harder to work with. So I'd really recommend, you know, you're already here. Just pre-scoop your cookies and then you can make 1 cookie, 2 cookies, 3 cookies. How many times have you only wanted one single delicious chocolate chip cookie? That sounded sarcastic, but it happens to me a lot. You can definitely experiment with these too. You can add sea salt on top, you could add nuts, you can make them with M&Ms. I still haven't done that yet. I might try to do that. And definitely save some of this cookie dough to eat because it is so incredibly delicious. I'm not a medical person, so eat raw cookie dough at your own risk. Okay, so I have a little bit more than half left over. So 9 cookies are in the oven. We have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 cookies here. So about 20 cookies plus extra if you want to eat the dough, which I will. You can go ahead and put these into a freezer just like this, and then once they are frozen, you can transfer them to a bag or container. I'm gonna wash out my mixer, and then we're going to prep some macadamia cookies. Okay, we're gonna check on the cookies, see how they look with an oven mitt. They look so good, and this browning on the edges is what you want. Okay, we are just going to transfer Okay, oven is still on. We're gonna move on to the macadamia nut cookies, but I'm actually gonna do things in the right order this time. We're gonna start by chopping nuts. I did buy macadamia nuts in bulk because you'd be surprised how much cheaper it actually was. So we're gonna do about a cup-ish, a little less than a cup, and we're gonna roughly chop those. If you have like a food processor or something, that would be great, but I don't. I don't really want all those little fine pieces in there, so we just used our hand as a sieve and we separated them. We're gonna chop up some chocolate. And I'm gonna be using a combination of this Lindt bar chocolate that I chop up and just white baking chips this size. I'm gonna try to make it a little bit asymmetrical as well. And I save them mostly for on top of the cookies, and I put the baking chips, the white ones, mostly in the cookies. I'm gonna do about half a cup of white chocolate chips, plus some that we chop up, just for that like melt factor, you know? Then we have our butter. Now for the dry ingredients, we are just repeating the process. Sometimes I add a little bit of extra salt in the macadamia cookies because I feel like they need it. Our dough is mixed. We're gonna add in the toppings. First the nuts, then the white chips. I'm actually gonna pop these into the fridge because I feel like the dough is a little too warm. Meanwhile, these are the cookies that we made before that we froze. All right, let's pull those macadamia nuts out and bake them. Also, putting in those cookies, I just realized we had our Dutch oven. We made pork like the other night. So our oven rack, instead of being in the middle, was on the bottom. And so the first batch of cookies that I made, I baked on the bottom of the oven rack, which definitely explains why they cooked a little bit faster than I expected, but it's okay. This is what we want. They look poofy. Wait for it. The drop. I can just tell these are gonna be so good. My spacing was a little off. These are just golden on the edges. The peaks of them are kind of getting gold, and they have the right thickness to them too. So these are gonna be 10 out of 10. Just gonna very carefully move those beauties over. The macadamia nut cookies not only look delicious, but I love the smell, the like nutty sweet smell. I'm gonna show you the bottoms just so you can see that the goal is a golden brown. And you'll notice when the edges turn golden that the bottoms are already there. So if you wait for the top to be golden brown, the bottom of your cookies are gonna be a little bit overcooked. Nice and poofy. Look how tasty, are you kidding? It's a bottom check. No, because this is it. This is how you impress your friends. This is how you get the job. This is how you get the man. You don't need a man, but this is how you get him. This is the secret to life. It is the fountain of youth. Make sure you like this video, subscribe and join the family down below, and I will see you in the next one.